Okay, well, I didn't want to have to make this video, but here we are. My Abby Muller account was falsely banned back in November, and I believe Sir Pugger had something to do with it. He makes videos on botting, and a lot of it has to do with LMS. My account I hadn't played in probably about a year, besides a little free-to-play, and I logged on, played 3 games of LMS, won all 3 of those games, tried to log back on the next day, and I was banned. I had no idea how this was possible. I ended up just submitting an appeal because I knew it would go through, and it turns out it didn't go through. My account was banned for macro major. I clicked through to see the evidence. The evidence they provided was really no evidence. It just said someone from our team confirms that you were botting in old school RuneScape. A few days later, my appeal came back denied. Because the appeal was denied, I went to Twitter and I started tweeting mods that deal with anti-cheating. Not a single one responded except for Mod Ash. Mod Ash basically just said, if the support team confirmed that the ban should stay, then it should stay. This kind of got me thinking because my account does kind of look suspicious. It's a level 54 Abby Muller with a pretty low total level. It's obviously not built to be an LMS bot, but they don't know that. It also has a very high win percentage. I did a challenge a while back where I tried to see how many wins I could get in 100 games. Turns out I got about 81. That also looks very suspicious. The reason I have such a high win percentage is because I tried really hard to see how many wins I could get out of 100 games. Ended up being 81. The other factor is that my account is level 54 combat. Most of these bots are between 50 to 70 combat now because there are requirements for LMS where you have to have a certain number of quest points and a certain total level. So the guy who's making LMS bots, I'm assuming, buys these accounts and then puts the bot scripts on those accounts. This clip I'm showing you right now is me doing LMS on my other account versus one of those bots. And this is kind of the bot script that my PureFA account got falsely identified as. These scripts, they switch attack styles based on what you're praying, and they switch their prayers based on what you're attacking with. You can manipulate these as I'm doing in this clip, where I'm one-ticking my ACB, but I'm also prayer flicking to make him hit me on prayer. Because those bots, what they do is they see what your prayer is, and then a tick later they attack at a different style. So if you switch your prayers like I'm doing here, oftentimes you can catch them on prayer. Again, I don't blame Jagex's detection system for thinking my account was potentially a macroing bot. What I do blame them for is not actually looking at the evidence with humans. They just assume that their system is flawless, and it's obviously not. One of the systems that is pretty much flawless is RuneLight's screenshot capture. Basically, anytime you die or kill someone in a PvP scenario, it takes a screenshot. And so I remembered this not that long ago, and I went through and looked through all my screenshots. I found a bunch of them from the day before I got banned. None of them super useful for me, except this one. IZK called me a effing bot and most likely reported me for being a bot. That was the last LMS game I played. The next time I tried to log on, my account was banned. Another very useful screenshot I found is this one. Basically, this PvP tracker from RuneLight is showing my average off prayer, damage dealt, offensive prayer, and all those things. This should be very adequate evidence that I'm not macroing or botting. At 61% is really good for a human. For a bot, it's not great. Most of those bots will hit you 80 to 95% off prayer, even if you know what you're doing. If you don't know what you're doing, they'll often hit you 95 to 100% off prayer. So what I'm going to show you guys now are some clips of me playing LMS. Some of these look, honestly, kind of like I'm HKing. There's certain switches you can do, one-tick barrages, which you'll see in this clip, and then honestly just a lot of really accurate prayer guessing. A lot of LMS is kind of guessing what your opponent's going to do based on previous moves that they've done and habits that they have. And people often think you're climbing when you guess well, which you'll see here in a little bit. That barrage I just did, and the one I'll do here in a second, it's basically a one tick barrage where all of your mage gear gets put on at the exact same game tick that your character casts a spell. Here's another one. And that honestly looks kind of like a bot, but as you can see, it's not. This next clip here is versus a pretty high rank guy. This is one of those clips where I was just hitting most of my prayers and kind of predicting exactly what he was going to do based on what a lot of people do in LMS. They do certain fakies, they do certain moves, and oftentimes you can predict them right if you're in your element. That's another thing about LMS is, and PKing in general, is sometimes you're on and sometimes you're off. And on rounds that you're off, you know, they're even someone who's not as good as you can beat you just because you're not quite timing everything right. In this match, I was on it. As you'll see, this guy calls me an AHK or midway through it. I think he actually says nice client, mainly because I was guessing almost all his prayers right. If you look down in the bottom left, he's only hit me 3 out of 11 times off prayer. And these ones, you know, you think he's going to range, and then he doesn't, so he's obviously switching gear, and he switched back to melee. I don't even use the entity hider that most people use to see what they're doing underneath people. Like I've said, these accusations are very, very common. Once or twice a game, probably people say something along the lines of it, or they'll PM me after the game saying that I was AHKing or botting against them. And oftentimes they're going to report. I've never been banned on any account. Again, Curafe is the only account I've ever had any issues on with Jagex, and unfortunately I think it was the perfect storm between the combat level, the win rate, and not playing for a few hundred days and coming back and winning a few games of LMS. This next clip is pretty similar, except this guy does not accuse me of anything. In fact, he's actually really nice, and he just tells me well played. That's pretty rare in the PKing scene and in LMS, but it happens, and you gotta respect these people, and you gotta hopefully be more like them when we all play this game. While this clip is kind of finishing out, I just want to go over a few things. I think this video does a pretty good job of providing enough evidence where if someone at Jagex sees it, they can hopefully take a manual look at the account, see when it was reported, what it was doing, and then, you know, hopefully see that it's not botting and not macroing. Most likely that's not going to happen. So I guess my main goal for this is to raise a little bit of awareness that, you know, the systems Jagex has in place to detect bots are not quite what they need to be. I do think they're doing a pretty good job, really. LMS has a lot less bots in it than it used to. Mod Twisted said he banned 1.3 million accounts in 2022. I have to believe that a decent number of those weren't actually justified bans, just based on my experience having this account banned. That being said, I can't speak for all those people, and, you know, hopefully someone from Jagex sees this, they can take a manual look into this account and see what's possible and look into what exactly happened. If you are someone from Jagex who reviews these types of things, maybe the anti-cheating team or whatever, please reach out and take a manual look at this account. I'm sure it's something that takes a decent amount of time, but it's also something that should be done. I think false banning accounts, especially ones in a game like this where you've put, honestly, a ridiculous amount of time into building these accounts, they shouldn't just be banned automatically and not reviewed in depth. I appreciate you. Thank you. Hope you guys have a good rest of your day. And I think a lot of us can learn from this guy, Snowy Seagull, and take our losses with a little humility, me included. Thank you guys.